Et nos amours, faut-il qu'ils m'en souviennent?
Welcome to The Thing About France, a podcast where American cultural figures explore the fascinating and complicated relationship between France and America. I'm Bénédicte de Montlaur, and this is The Thing About France. Mickalene Thomas is one of those artists you hear about one day and then realize her works are all around you. I first learned about her from her French gallerist, Nathalie Obadia. And since then, I seem to encounter her all the time. One morning in June, Mickalene and her partner and muse, Racquel Chevremont, joined us at Albertine. We talked at length about how Mickalene reinterprets famous French painting, about the visibility of Black women in the arts, and their love for Dior, French butter, and the role that Paris plays for African-American artists. Allez, c'est parti. Hello, Mickalene and Racquel, and welcome to The Thing About France.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
I'm very, very happy to have you on our podcast because you're a duo of artists who are really challenging the way the art world works, but also because I think since the first minute I discovered your work, Mickalene, I was struck by how you try to reinterpret French painters' work, and the most famous French painters, like from Manet, Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe, that you totally reinterpreted, or Courbet, The Origin of the Universe. So just tell me, how did it start?
It all started in undergrad. I went to Pratt Institute and fell in love with French Impressionism and really wanted to really understand painting and looking at classical painting and thinking about how they were viewed in the world and as images and how people responded to them, and wanted to figure out for myself as a woman of color how I could align my work with that.
So what gave you the idea of, for instance, taking Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe and putting 3 Black women there?
I thought, why not, right? I think the idea came from when I was invited by MoMA to do a commission and went through the sculpture garden and the history there. I realized at that particular moment there was a Matisse bronze relief sculpture in the back. I knew I wanted to do something very profound and provocative. And so when the commission came, it just seemed like the right time. It seemed like the right place and the right moment to shift the paradigm of representation. There was this great opportunity for me as an artist to work with all of the artists that I worked through at that time. Romare Bearden, Matisse, myself, and Manet, to really bring them together. And that was
in one work of art.
And I could do that by sitting these 3 Black women in Le Déjeuner composition. It was also the first time, site-specifically, where I brought the work outside of the studio and to a space, because I've always photographed in my studio. And, it was
I guess
like...
then you did that a lot in Giverny, no? Because if you were in love with those impressionists, this is really what they did. Yeah. All of a sudden, they started painting outside and nature. And
Giverny was a really fantastic experience working at Monet's estate. Before going there, I was working through landscape, looking at the Hudson River painters. And so once I got to Giverny, it was very exciting to go through Monet's gardens. It's definitely a place for tourists during the day. And so during the evenings, it was really just magical, because you had the whole place to yourself as an artist. And
were you staying in the house now?
Yeah, we were separate. We were staying across from the house, the studio space, a live workspace, and they're just really beautiful. And so you can just walk the estate and just be in his home and the gardens by yourself. And it was very just peaceful and tranquil. And you get a sense of what he was seeing and his vision and how he used his landscape as his own still life, how he built his world for himself.
Racquel, in fact, you were also in France at the same time.
I was,
so did you
yes.
come to visit at Giverny? What happened?
I tried to lure her many times. One time it was disappointing when she didn't show up, but that was okay. But she eventually came.
But that's quite good to say, come, I'm staying in this place. It's not too bad. It's Giverny.
Yes, we eventually did make it there together. Afterwards, video and space.
And what were you doing in France at that time?
I had taken a flat to go there for a month with my children, just to
right near the
experience-
Pompidou.
Not
Literally,
bad.
Yeah, right.
But literally right above Natalie Obadiah's gallery.
Yeah.
Really? That was a premonition?
It
Was she already?
premonition.
Was she already your French gallerist?
She wasn't my gallerist at that time. No, it was very
And
serendipitous.
it was basically the penthouse of her building. That was kind of the point in time. Mickalene and I had been friends for many years, but we both ended up in Paris at the same time, or at least in France, I should say.
And was it something important for you, like both of you in your work, to come to stay in France?
Oh, yeah. For me, it was. I think just, my knowledge of just, James Baldwin going there, reading about his experiences in Paris.
Well, it was an outpost for African Americans in that time,
and just the
where they could
jazz
feel
musicians and, just Josephine Baker and Eartha Kitt, like all of these people that I grown to love and adored as mentors, right? And established as idols through literature and music, and who have always viewed France as a place,
As a safe
as
place.
a safe place,
As a safe haven
right?
for African Americans to go and feel free when they were so oppressed here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a rich history of artists and through all fields.
Yeah, so
Right.
we always view France, and particularly Paris, as a place to journey and for culture and to live and to we love
we
love it.
We
love it.
absolutely love
like for
France
me
and Paris.
it's the first place that I've in my mind knew that I wanted to go when I was going to Europe. It's the first place my mother has ever been to when she went to Europe.
Mine as well.
And
which is
so
pretty
it
funny.
was, for me, I knew that was the first place I was going to step foot in Europe. There was no question.
And so how did it change the way you work or your work staying there? Like, did it have an impact? Like, did you come back different?
Oh, absolutely. I think I came back much more aware of myself and other people.
And so what was your reception? Like, what did you feel? Because were you welcomed?
I think we have opposite experience. I've always felt a great love and friendliness. I think there's a difference when she and I are walking down the street.
What is the difference?
I think, it's very interesting. I had a number of years ago taken some French lessons when I started spending more time in Paris. And the woman, when I first began, she said, "Oh, you have a very great accent, but let me give you some advice. When you are in France, start with English first and then speak French." And I asked, why? That's interesting. I mean, usually you would want to start with the language. And she said, well, you look Algerian or Moroccan, and you will be treated differently if you begin with French. So you need to let them know that you're American.
Yeah, because being
Yes.
American is very prestigious. People
Right.
dream about America.
Right.
Well, at that time, probably not now.
It depends. It's a generalization anyway. But
I think it's different now.
Possibly.
so did you do that?
So I did.
And did it work?
And it worked. I mean, and so that led me to understand a little bit more while African Americans went there and they didn't experience the segregation, they also didn't experience, I suppose, what people who look more like I do experience in your country. So there are those issues there where you may not have the black-white situation, but it's a little more nuanced and it's more this foreigner, Algerian kind of Moroccan
being
thing.
American sort of erases
what I
your
look
color
like.
anyway.
Yeah,
Right,
yes,
exactly.
Yes. So it's the one place where I'm treated
So
better.
oftentimes better. Right.
So that's interesting.
It's very interesting because
yeah.
that's obviously, you know, sadly in our country, not the dynamic here. Where in Paris, it's the complete opposite. So outside of what I get, I also get from the French Africans there that I'm somehow dirty.
Yes.
Why?
Because I have dirty blood, because they assume I'm biracial. And so I'm not pure.
Yeah.
And so there's this, it's just fascinating. I wanted to circle back on her painting at the MoMA. There were a lot of people who were very emotional about it because they had not seen themselves in an institution like that and did not feel welcome. And to walk by and see a painting, this enormous painting of these three beautiful black women who look like they did, it was really powerful.
Yeah, and this is really at the center of your work. I feel like what you're trying to do is challenge the wide definition of beauty and what
absolutely
is, that what painters should represent. And I was reading in an interview of you that what really was a starting point was this exhibition of Carrie Mae Weems, where for the first time you see black body and black woman represented, and so
in an institution.
In an institution. So how did it feel?
What did I feel when I saw that?
And Racquel, what do you feel when you see yourself? I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in
Yeah, I guess when I first saw those images, the table series at the Portland Art Museum, Carrie Mae Weems photographs, I saw that representation of myself, that what reminded me of who I am. You know, in a place where I was living where there was a lack of representation. In Portland, Oregon, there's a very small percentage of African American. I think at the time it was like less than 2%. And so, you know, I was always the other with my friends. I was always the other. I was always representing people of color. And so seeing myself in those photographs were everything, but it was more than just seeing myself. I knew what it was like. It was also about the familial, right? It was what she captured in the color, the essence of the mood. Like you can step into that image. It was so profound enough. As a period of time, it was very timeless. That representation was so palpable that it ignited in me so much fuel and inspiration that I just was like so excited enough. It created so much empowerment that I wanted to be an artist. I said, whatever this emotion that is really burning in me, that's what I want to do. It was at a time in my life where I was trying to figure out things. And I had a friend that dragged me to see this work. He said, you know, you have to see this work. And when I went to see the show, I started going back, and I think I've seen it about 5 or 6 times. It was at a time where I knew I wanted to be an artist and at some point in my life make the type of art that inspired women, inspired whoever saw my art the way this work was doing to me. And that's always been in my mind when I'm making work.
And
that's what I want.
That you figured out, okay, the subject and the way to do it, or what happened?
Just, I guess, the process of making work is just like really thinking about the images and thinking about how to use that to inspire people, to move them.
Because I'm struck by, all those textures in your work, like the rhinestone, but also those beautiful, like, motifs we say in French, like, like the flowers and the
layer, the patterns.
The pattern, exactly.
It's about taking for me, it's about taking African and African-American aesthetic, about women making things, about quilt making, the history of that, the history of fabric making, and just,
and I read that you
textile
were also
design.
Inspired by pointillism and by Seurat for the rhinestones. Is that true?
Yeah, that's very true. Yes.
How did...
Yeah, because when I was in undergrad, I did study in Aboriginal art in Australia. But while I was doing that, I was also looking at pointillism and studying Seurat. And so for me, it was really a way of trying to understand high and low art, of really integrating the two. Because here I'm an artist and I'm who I am, this African-American artist, and I'm interested in outsider art, but I'm also interested in what is considered a high art. So how do you integrate these two conversations, right?
Yeah, but exactly. But one of the things that I was really surprised is that I'm good friend with the CEO of Dior here in the US.
Yeah.
And he was in Miami at Basel with you. Yeah. And he told me, some artists created those bags for us, including Mickalene Thomas. I was like, oh, I love her. She's so amazing. And she did a bag for you? And so I was surprised. I was like, wow. Some artists would consider, no, I wouldn't do that for a commercial house. So, but at the same time, when I look at your work, it's so much about material and women. And so it makes sense. But what was your process?
I think it was something that I probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't for Racquel. I think a lot of these special projects that I'm doing has to do with, they're a little frustrating for me because it's a demand that I'm not used to. And it requires a different part of the brain that's a little more analytical, that's a little more frustrating for me because it's a time management that doesn't really work with how I work creatively. It's, so it's kind of like switching a brain of a design world that's a little different, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a
and
little.
And what was the importance for you about doing this project?
About doing Dior, I felt. Coming from the fashion industry, I was a model for over 20 years. It's venerable. It's Dior.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like if you're going to align yourself with any company and any brand, this is a great one to do that with. And our love of France, our love of the Parisians, it just made sense. And nowadays, I know in the past it was more like, oh, artists don't do collaborations with certain things. Now that's huge.
That's pretty common.
It is. It's much more common. And so Dior has some of the best artisans.
Yeah.
So if you're going to work with a company, you work with a company who works with the best and can really create a product that can mirror and work in relationship to your own artwork and not devalue either.
Yeah.
Right? So we worked.
What was your
it.
role then in this project?
Cracking the whip.
Well, cracking the whip, but also, being a woman and knowing that this bag was going to be carried.
Wanting to have a beautiful bag.
Well, and knowing that this bag was going to be carried by women, I was able to give some more, direction into the route you should
she's
go.
Really great with her eye and helping me. She understands the fashion world. I've never been in that world. So she has a really good sense of that community and the people and sort of that aesthetic and what they're looking for. And so with her knowing my work and that world, she can look at what I'm doing and we can talk about what works best.
Yeah, it reaches out a different public, obviously.
Yeah, it's a different public, different audience.
And Racquel, continuing on your role, you're a model, so you see yourself in paintings,
right?
And in her work, because this work is all about giving visibility to women of color. So how is it for you?
I'm used to seeing my image, I suppose, but this has a lot more power because it is a thing that's going to be viewed by millions.
And it's not just temporary.
It's not temporary. It is something that, there's a painting of me that's now a part of the Whitney collection.
That's quite cool.
When I am no longer here, this painting will still exist. The other difference is that working with Mickalene, it's more of a collaborative thing. So it's more me.
And so when you see a painting by
Right.
Mickalene, you're like, wow, she captured me.
Well, it's funny. It took a while. There aren't that many paintings of me out there in the world.
No, that's their.
I think
if you have a
people
painting,
think-
if whoever has a painting of Racquel, they're a very lucky collector.
Yes, she has not created very many paintings of me. I guess our first photo shoot was about 5 years before she started making paintings.
So the portraits you did of her, what are they? Like paintings or photographies?
they're photographs, and they start as photographs.
They're collages,
Yes.
photographs, and paintings. There's a lot of them that I have not made into
No.
a painting at all. I think it's very, like she said, there was a period of time where I just didn't make it, and part of it is because I was very nervous and kind of overwhelmed and really fearful that she wouldn't like how she looked. You know what I mean? It's like if it's your partner's, like you didn't want to disappoint them. Once I got over that, and then it got to the point was like, do I want people to
Share her.
share? Yeah. It's like, do I want to share her to the world?
So, and you're still not totally over that.
And so I'm not totally over that, because now it's like so many people want just the Racquel paintings that I've had to only make
Wow.
a few of
So
them.
that was really, in fact, one of the most, but because it was one of the most difficult, so then work of art, so then that's.
I think
it
there's a part
translated.
of that, but I think it's also the history. I think it's the fact that we're in a relationship together. I think that make people feel like there's a bigger story and background to that.
In fact, about knowing the story and giving visibility, there was this great exhibition at the Wallach Art Gallery
Yes.
at Columbia University about the black model. Because throughout history,
Yes.
in fact, you had a lot of black models in painting, but
Yes.
they were
Right.
just. They were there, but
They were
invisible,
omitted, yeah.
because they had no identity.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was really the beauty
Yeah.
of this show, that in fact it's giving back their identities, their visibilities, their names. Even Olympia, there is this black servant there, and they researched and found her name, and for the exhibition they were like, okay, this is Laure.
Yeah, Laure, yeah.
Let's give her a presence and an identity.
And that's one of the reasons why, and make sure all of the women in my paintings, you will notice that it has their names. It always has their name. And it starts with portrait of Cuscazar, portrait of Racquel. It always has their name in it. That was very important for me as an artist, to make sure that the models and my work had visibility, that they were present. And also so that the people knew that these women exist, that they weren't fictional, that these were everyday women that I knew.
And do you see your work very political? Like this is the goal, to make those women more visible? It's not your main goal? But
Yes, I think just the fact that I'm painting black women is a political statement.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah.
I think my work is still, in some cases, very difficult for institutions to accept.
Did you feel that? Did you
Oh
experience that?
I think there are sometimes some of my videos that are about the relationship with myself and Racquel.
I read that you did a video at the Hotel Coste in Paris.
Yes.
And that this video was not including in an exhibition or show that you were working on.
Yeah. They was censored from several institutions
Here in the U.S.
Here in the U.S., it's always shown in Europe or internationally, but it's never been shown in the United States. It's
And why?
Because it's always comes back that the audience is not ready, or it's too provocative or explicit. But I think it's more about that they're not really ready to see two black women together. Period. Because we see images of two white women. We see images of white men.
In fact, you even reinterpreted one of the painting by Courbet with two black women.
Yeah, but any of those images, they're just...
Yeah, I think it's the video work.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they consider it a little too risque. You never see us on screen together. I think it makes people uncomfortable to sit there and just watch this love affair, essentially. And so I think that's it. They're willing to show way more explicit stuff if it's a heterosexual couple. And France, it's really been shown more in France.
Yeah. I mean, I
Monte
know,
Carlo
like
in
when
Paris.
my gallery, Natalie Obadia in Paris is always the most courageous. And that's why I really love working with her as my gallery in Europe, and just always very excited and always just like, yes, this is great. Yes, I will show it.
Do you think there is something more European or more French about that compared to your American gallery?
Yes, yes. I think it's just Europe is just very open, and it's not very puritanical. There's no of these issues about sexuality. It's about looking at the female nude in a whole different way. It's not sexualizing the nude all the time.
Yeah, and it's not always sexual. In fact, like one of the other things that struck me in your work is really this female-female relationship. Like in France at the moment, in the feminist groups, there is this idea of sorority that is really growing. So the specificity of the female-female relationship, and this is something that really transpires in your work, because it's not always like a romantic relationship. It's also like friendship relationship.
Yeah, sisterhood.
Yeah, sisterhood. This is a better translation. We say sororité in French, but I guess it's sisterhood. So is this something important to you?
Oh, absolutely.
You want to put forward?
Oh, sisterhood is very important to me. I think that comes from a lot of the readings from, Audre Lorde and Outsider and just Zami, and just like really thinking about queer identity and just like creating your own community and what does that mean of chosen families, and like how you use your art and your voice to create these environments of support, right? Systems. You have to create these communities. You have to create these kind of platforms within your own for yourself, so that you can navigate the world in the best way possible, so you can survive. I'm telling my story about being a Black queer woman in America through my painting.
And the sisterhood is one thing. I think we've all they've tried to convince us that we need to be against each other, because only, one of us can be better, So now I think women are realizing, no, this isn't how we that's not appeasing people and trying to be against each other is not how we're going to succeed. And we need this sisterhood helping the other woman up along, and not saying, well, I've claimed the space, I got here by myself, good luck to you. Find your way.
And in fact, you even created a project, like a platform, Deux Femmes Noires.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you say it in French or in English? Like to Black women?
No, we said Deux Femmes Noires.
Yeah, this is something that struck me, like in many of your paintings, the title is in French, and I always wonder, like, am I on a French, like, internet, like, platform, or why is it called, like, why is it Deux Femmes Noires for a project happening in America?
Everything sounds better in French.
But do people understand?
Don't you agree? Everything sounds better in French.
I'm a little bit biased,
I mean, and my show in Toronto is like Femme Noire,
Yes.
Just like, I think it sounds better than Black female, right? I mean, there's certain ways you can say things, and it just gives you that little soft edge of just like not being.
And who doesn't love a French accent?
Exactly.
French word?
Thank you for encouraging me. I was trying to, in fact, get rid of my accent a bit more. But so, what do you do in Deux Femmes Noires? Like, how do you encourage women artists?
So we started with our exhibition at Volta. We were invited to curate their curated section that they do annually. And initially we thought, do we do all women? Because we're not just, as Deux Femmes Noires, it is more woman-centric, but we all need it, African-American men, all of us. And so, but we're tending to go towards most of the men that we work with are queer identifying, because they're also in a box of limited visibility and acceptance. And so when we curated this show, we did half and half. Half of the artists were women, and then the other half were men. And they were all queer except for one, right? So it's a platform we've designed to try to use our visibility and the platform that we have to bring them up as well. And so when she does shows, oftentimes we will incorporate other artists' work. And we got here by hard work, but also, help and luck like everybody else does. And so we thought, well, now that we're here, this is our way to give back and to bring more people up, because the conversation will not change with just one of us up here. It wasn't an obligation from Volta that we needed to be there. It was just curate some artists and, help them put it up on the wall, and then that's it.
But we were there every day bringing
museum directors through, curators through.
You really using our network.
Wanted to use our network.
It was activism for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, another thing that Racquel and I are doing with another group of artists, we are starting another platform called the Josie Club.
Yes.
What is
so
it?
So that's a completely, it's kind of related.
It's related.
It is related. We've started that with another artist friend, Nina Chanel Abney, and her partner. And that's to bring...
Jet Tumor.
Yes. That's to Jet Black. That's to bring visibility to queer Black women, and to not just the celebrity ones, right? Yeah. But the ones who are really doing the hard work on the ground, who are making sure that women of color who are queer get the services they need and the help, and get to know who each other are and have a support system. Yeah. So that's really something that we're very passionate about.
Yeah. To work with other artists to define, to be active in society.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's our form of activism. Oftentimes people are like, are you political? Are you on the street and fighting against the administration and this and that? And it's like, well, that's not where we can work best.
We're more behind the scenes and collaborating in different ways and being socially active and socially politically active.
Also, our time is almost up. I wanted to come back to France a minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your Proustian Madeleine? What sound, what smell, what sight brings you back to France?
French butter for me.
Yeah.
No, really.
It is. It's French butter with
French
salt.
Butter with the demi-sel.
The demi-sel,
That's the one thing. I mean, I hunt for it. Our children are like, this isn't butter. I mean, where's the French butter? So
that's a perfect answer.
That's all we buy is French butter.
And that brings us back. So every time we go to Paris, that's the first thing you want is a baguette and some butter.
So the butter is very important in our house.
And what is your favorite thing? What you do when you arrive in Paris? What is the thing?
The one thing that we do when we're in Paris, we always stay in the Marais. And we always go to Robert and Louise restaurant.
Yes. There's a little steakhouse.
There's a little steakhouse there.
Husband and wife, they cook everything on an open wood fire. And so that was kind of our first place we had dinner together when we were in Paris. And so we go back there all the time. The other place we always go to is BHV in the Marais. Because we love their products.
It's the best place to shop. We love that place. We love it. Everything, their houseware.
And you know that when you live in Paris, in fact, in the basement, they have all the tools.
Exactly. That's our favorite place. So we just bought these lights for the kids for camp. And
it goes from fashion to hunger.
Exactly.
We always go there and we complain about how the American houseware sucks. And we take pictures and we're like, weren't we looking for a really narrow garbage can for our country house? Here it is. This is where we need it. Get it from here.
Why is everything so fashionable here? Even their garbage cans are gorgeous and you don't have to order it from Design Within Reach.
Gosh, we're just getting so ripped off in America.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I got to know you better. I'm very grateful. It was great.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
The Thing About France is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Special thanks to 6e Son for our music and to Force Majeure for our look and feel. For more information, visit thethingaboutfrance.com. Allez, c'est fini.